Hello Art 1-2 and welcome to your demonstration for the plant. So I'm going to draw it horizontally. You can choose to draw it vertically where the paper is taller than it is wide. So remember that you're holding your pencil at the very end to make all the little guideline marks. I'm going to do it in marker so that you can see it. All right, so I want room to draw the bottle and part of the plant. So I am going off of this image just so I can point out to you. This is the image that's in Google Classroom. So I want space for the bottle, plant, and space up top. So I'm actually going to divide my paper into thirds. The bottom third is going to be the bottle, and then I'll have room for the rest of the plant. If your drawing goes off the page, it is okay. It doesn't have to fit perfectly. Okay, so my first step would be to do the division for the height of the bottle. So I'm going to, and I could do another third, but I just want this space for the bottle. The next step is to block in the bottle or the jug with shapes. So what I notice, and I'm just going to do it in the middle. You can do it off to one side or the other if you want. And I'm going to notice how it kind of slants out, almost like a trapezoid, and then it curves. So it's like a half oval. And then I notice where the handle is, it's not all the way at the top and kind of comes down. So I'm going to block that in. Now I'm going to do guidelines for each leaf. So I'm looking at how does it line up with the bottle as well. So I have a stem that comes up, comes over, and I have a leaf that comes down. And I look at how close to the bottle does that leaf come. So how close? Then I have a leaf on top of that one, lays on top. Then I have another leaf like here, and it comes further out. And then there's a leaf that comes up here, and one that's behind it that comes up taller. And I have a leaf coming over about halfway up on these two. And there's a leaf that comes over, and then a leaf that probably lines up about where the bottle is. So I have a leaf over here. Maybe a little bit lower. I have a little piece of a leaf sticking out. So you're going to do your guidelines just to kind of tell yourself like, hey, there's leaves in this area. Then we're going to, as you're doing that, I'm looking at length and direction, like how far over, spacing between the bottle and the leaf, how much space is between the bottle and the leaf here, and spacing. The other thing I'm looking for as I'm starting is, what are the major negative space shapes between the leaves? So I look at how this is like V-shaped here. This is like L-shaped here, like backwards L. Regular L-shaped here, and then V-shaped here. So that might be helpful for spacing as well. The other thing I look at is, what are the shapes of the negative spaces between the stems? So I personally like to draw a little bit of negative space, then draw the leaves in that area. Come back and draw a little bit of negative space, little white spaces between the stems, and then draw the leaves in that area. So I like to kind of look at it as I go. If it's easier for you to draw the shape of the negative space first, then you could. So I'm going to look at that first negative space, and it like curves down, comes over, and then it's a space between the stems. Probably comes up a little bit. So that's my first negative space. Then I would look at how there's like another negative space next to that. And it's really the space between the stems. Look at how there's a negative space on top of that, but I'll probably add that as I get into that area. Okay, so for this particular drawing, you're really going to want to slow your eye down and really focus on what the outline shapes look like, and not the fact that you're looking at leaves. Because what we want to avoid is this. Because this is left-brained. This is like the symbol of a leaf. Very few leaves actually look like that. And the leaves in the picture definitely don't look like that at all. The other thing is when I draw the stems here, I'm going to make sure it's not just a single line. And if it is a single line, you're going to go back and make it a double line. So if I have a single line for the stem, I'm going to go back and make it a double line. And you'll leave that part white, and then you'll have a negative space. Let's say I have another stem. So then it creates that negative, it creates that negative space between when you have a double thickness to the line. And you want it to be fairly thin because the stems are really, really thin. Okay, so I'm going to start with the bottle. So we're going to start easy. And I'm going to look at what I can see. I think it comes down a little bit further. And then it's like a rounded shoulder curve, okay? Then I'm gonna go on the other side of the stem. So I'm not drawing the stems inside. And this is probably more rounded, I would say. Comes down, goes into that curve. And then I do have a negative space. That kind of looks like the letter D. Okay, so notice I didn't draw any of the stems, just the outline. All right, now I'm gonna follow my eye along the first stem. Okay, then I'm gonna follow my eye along that first leaf. And I'm kind of paying attention to my length and direction. Like looking at my drawing, looking at the item or picture. And so there are two leaves here. Like visually, these two, I can see the separation between the leaves, like right here, but I'm not going to draw it. I'm just looking at the total outline, total contour outline that those two leaves create together. So sometimes it's easier if you like kind of squint your eye a little bit. Okay. So then I'm going to go back and I'm going to put in the double thickness for my stem. And then I'm going to refine or perfect that negative space. Double thickness for that stem. Okay, now I'm going to move on and draw the negative spaces that I can see here, just to kind of tell myself like, hey, there's negative spaces here. And actually like this becomes a negative space because there's another stem next to that. Okay. All right, so I have this negative space. And then I'm looking, and probably I'm kind of guesstimating, like all the way up here, and then it comes down. So you can break it down into a shape, and then I'm going to look a little more closely. Kind of like there's this piece that comes in, comes up, and it's actually like two leaves there. And don't color in on your final draft. I'm just showing you where those negative spaces are. Okay. Now I'm going to pick up where this stem is. And I'm going to look at how close these two leaves are. Like this one almost touches this one like here. Okay, so that gives me something to kind of go from the stem to the leaf above. Little piece. Okay. Now there's like 3 leaves that kind of combine right here, but there's 2 right here. So I'm not drawing the 2. I'm just following my eye around. And this one's folded over on top of itself, but I'm just drawing what I can see as far as spaces goes. Okay, so that top leaf is not fitting on my paper. That's okay. Let it go off the page. But before I get too much further, I'm going to draw these spaces in here because it will help me draw the underside of the leaves there. So I'm going to go back and draw my double line for the stem. Okay. Looking a little more closely. Okay, then I have another stem, a little piece of a leaf that sticks in. Okay, so then I have another negative space next to this. So I'm going to draw, which probably starts up here. So I'm going to draw that stem coming down. And then I have a space of another leaf where it overlaps. Negative space. Okay. And then next to that, I have another little negative space that looks like the letter D, kind of. And then I have a leaf that overlaps here. So that helped me draw the leaf right in there. I am going to add this other little negative space sliver that I see. Okay. So drawing that helped me draw the underside of, like really the underside of 2 leaves and this 3rd leaf. So then I can just focus on contour outline and I'll come back and draw. There's another negative space in there when I get to that point. All right, so coming off the page, and sometimes it's more interesting for it to go off the page. So I think it's totally fine to let it go off the page. I mean, if it fits, it fits. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Okay, so I'm looking at how the underside of the leaf is here. I'm drawing probably here. That's where that little piece of the leaf is. Along the stem, and it curves. Okay. Negative space. All right, so then in my last 2 leaves, I'm looking at how close they are to the one I just drew and paying attention to like it's kind of a V-shaped space, but I'm also looking at like, okay, that next set of leaves kind of comes in here. It probably comes up to here. So you can give yourself extra little guidelines if it will be helpful for the drawing part. And I have one last negative space to draw as well. So I'm going to draw the inside part to help me draw these 2 leaves. I have one last negative space, which helps me draw that second leaf at the bottom. This is all negative space, negative space, negative space. Okay. All right, so I have the back of the 2 leaves drawn. Now I'm going to draw the top of the second to last one. Actually, this comes out more to a point. Sorry. little piece of the leaf from behind. Making sure I'm kind of hitting my guideline where I said where it lined up with the bottle. Okay, so starting from the stem. Down a little bit. So there actually is 2 leaves here, but I'm gonna just draw where I see them overlapping. And I do see, let's see, where is this? A tiny little negative space. Little piece. If you can't see it, don't draw it. Okay, so remember it's the total contour outline. If you have areas where leaves overlap each other, just don't think about it as leaves. Just follow your eye around the wobbliness of each little leaf. All right, good luck.